I feel the agony of the poor slave mother as she wails with broken-hearted grief. Her young child is ripped from her arms as the mother is sold to another master on a plantation far away. Oh, pity the poor slave, treated worse than a beast, forced to carry 100 pounds of cotton on her back, beaten raw by the master's whip. Even little children do back-breaking work. They hoe and pick cotton from sun-up to sundown. Why? Because they are the property of someone else, simply for the crime of having a dark complexion. On the auction block, a young husband and wife, aged 18 and 17, sell for $2,000. A young boy sells for $645. A 14-year-old girl fetches $865. But if she is light-skinned, she fetches a little more. And a crying toddler, standing all alone on the auction block, is sold to the highest bidder. 1/6 of our nation's population is in chains. When slave hunters wander these very woods, looking to kidnap brave Negro men and women, oh, they capture not only the fugitive slave, but free-born black, to send them back into bondage. Oh, slavery. Slavery has been victorious since this atrocious fugitive slave law was passed. The heavens are overcast with dark shadows, casting gloom on this nation. Oh, honest-hearted citizens, like you and you must not allow this tragedy to continue. You must put a stop to prejudice of color that allows that evil system to exist. Why, slavery? Slavery is a crime and a sin, and it must be ended immediately. Each new audience listens carefully when I first describe the cruel, hard facts of slavery. Slave families, they're ripped apart forever. Though nothing like their anguish, my heart breaks whenever I must leave my dear husband, Stephen, and our darling daughter, Ala, with her big brown eyes and chestnut hair. Oh, I don't know how I could go on if I was never allowed to see her again. I can't believe how well she prints now.
Dear Mother, I sure would like to see you. I wish you were here and not so far away in Indiana. I was sick yesterday forenoon, but I am well now. I've made me a new pair of underdrawers, and I'm making a new apron. Oh, Father and I have begun to drop potatoes. I drop them right in the holes, and Father, he covers them with the dirt. And he says if I drop them all, he'll give me a bushel. He will sell them for me, and give me all the money he gets for them. Mother, you know how my bedtime prayers always end with amen. Ought we not to say a woman sometimes? When are you coming home, Mother? Write to me soon. Your affectionate daughter, Alla. Well, I am missing out on so much of Alla's life. But I am pleased. I am pleased that Stephen is teaching her to earn and control her own money. Why, how can the law allow a father or a husband or even an older brother to take all of a girl or woman's earnings? It's shameful. Oh, my dearest Alla, your birthday is coming soon, and then you shall be 7 years old. What a great girl you're getting to be. You will soon be as tall as I am, I think. I had intended to come and keep house with you, but decided to stay here a little bit longer and preach to these wicked men responsible for allowing slavery to continue. Do you often think of the poor little slave girls who can never see their dear mothers again? Well, I pity them more than I pity us, for I am pretty sure that I shall be home within 6 weeks, and then we shall have fine times together. Oh, can it be a half year since I've seen my darling daughter? That is the sacrifice that God has asked of me. Now, the first 3 years I lectured, I was on my own, and it really wasn't so bad. Then, Stephen and I, we fell in love. For the next 4 years, we stole our moments together whenever our paths crossed at some anti-slavery convention. Oh, and when we were lucky, we were scheduled to lecture together for several weeks at a time. Now, of course, we never let on that we had feelings for each other until after we were married. And then Alla was born. It broke my heart to leave her with Stephen and his family, but how could I selfishly stay at home with my darling daughter while so many poor slave mothers had their young babes torn from their arms? Well, these past few months, Stephen and I have lectured together all across Michigan and Ohio. It was like the honeymoon we never had. But Stephen admits that I am the better lecturer and he the better farmer. So he hurried home 3 weeks ago for spring planting in Worcester, Massachusetts. Oh, I often think of that large old farmhouse in Worcester with the fruit trees, the fresh vegetables, and the strawberries, and our abolitionist friends gathered around our fireplace, and my darling daughter sitting on my lap. Alla, oh, you cannot believe this poor log home in which I am staying, although it's not as poor as some others in the area. I do share the one sleeping chamber with my hosts, Sarah and William, while their 3 children sleep in the loft, and their every movement causes dirt to fall from the rafters. Oh, but they're good Quakers, and they're fine abolitionists. But they, like many people here, are too timid to do anything truly active for the cause. Oh, the fleas. Oh, the fleas. Oh, Alla. Oh, the one thing I don't like here are the fleas. Oh, since the weather has grown warmer, they're having such a feast on my body, I'm afraid I'm growing quite thin. But I need to soothe all of these bites. Oh, is a cold water dunking from head to toe, and my little hand basin is not enough. A daily cold water bath is essential to our physical and spiritual well-being, and the colder, the better. I am sending you a book to help you remember the poor little slave girls. Keep on being a good helper. Your affectionate mother. Well, I must not complain about dirt and fleas. The work I do for the anti-slavery movement is far more important. Well, you see, it's like planting a garden. Now, I work hard to clear away the wild brush of prejudice so that I may plant and water my seeds of anti-slavery grace. And the converts to our cause are as welcome as the tiny sprouting seedlings are to the farmer in the field. But there are other fields to which I must attend. But I cannot leave this place without someone to weed this garden of all the ignorance and to water it with a passion for justice. Now that means I have to find someone to become secretary for their new local anti-slavery society. And someone must sell newspaper subscriptions to the Anti-Slavery Bugle and the Liberator, or the people here in northeastern Indiana will not know what's happening all across the nation. Well, I will. I will find someone to take over here, for this work must continue. I owe it. I owe it to those broken-hearted slave mothers of the South. Right here, brothers and sisters, in this very township, 3 white men sit in jail for helping a runaway Negro slave. You know who they are. Why, they're your 3 good neighbors. Well, I can tell by this rock thrown through that window that not all people in your community agree with my anti-slavery sentiments. What's that you say, sir? You think I ought to be locked up in jail? Well, that man has a point. You see, according to the fugitive slave law, I, Abby Kelley Foster, am a criminal. Yes, yes, I have willingly broken the law, and I shall do so again and again as long as the laws and constitution of this nation support the evil system of slavery. Now, do you realize that those 3 men sitting in jail can be kept there up to 6 months and fined $1,000 each? Well, what if you had given a fugitive shelter? What if you had given one a cup of water? Before the laws of this great nation, you both are criminals. But before the eyes of God, no person is a criminal for upholding the natural laws of the universe. Each of us, man and woman, white and black, is created equal and deserves to be free. And I know that some people scoff and scowl at the idea of equality. And some even throw rocks. But we radical abolitionists believe this truth to be self-evident. When the church-going people of this nation do nothing to put a stop to slavery, they might just as well be supporting it. Oh, shh, brothers and sisters, shh. No, hear me, brothers and sisters. There can be no bargaining with a slaveholder. There can be no union with a slaveholder. And that includes the churches and the political parties in Congress that compromise with the slave system. Why, I am bound by my duty to God to speak this truth. The United States Constitution is a slave document.
and it was written by slave owners. "3 hours, and such an unruly crowd. Oh, I wish I'd had someone with me to share the stage. Let's see. I was called a traitor, an infidel, a man-woman, a Jezebel." Oh, would they had been more original. I was called all that 10 years ago in Connecticut. Well, the people here in northeastern Indiana don't want trouble. But I am here to plant trouble. Dearest Stephen, oh, how I miss traveling beside you. Oh, there's no one here with whom I can speak freely. We have established a female anti-slavery sewing circle to help raise funds for the cause, but many women are getting nervous. One said, "Sister sent this here bonnet. She promises to keep on sewing at home for the poor slave. But she's too afraid to come to your meetings and your lectures. She knows her husband would never permit it." Poor sister. She works hard to break the slave free of his chains, but she's unaware of the shackles that bind her like a slave to her husband. And then the Methodist minister, who had been so eager to let me use his church meeting house, why, he cornered me. "Now, Mrs. Foster, you know I'm no lover of the slaveholder, but all that yelling and rock throwing and chaos, oh, that's too violent for the house of God. I'm afraid you're going to have to find yourself another place to lecture from now on." Another lukewarm supporter of abolition. Why, even the school teacher refused to let me use the schoolhouse. She was afraid some parents might object. Well, I have lectured in fields and apple orchards before. There's an empty lot next to the blacksmith shop in town. I will lecture there if I have to. Stephen, the sewing circle meets tomorrow. What can I say to help those ladies find more courage? Ladies, no. Don't feel bad that there are so few of us here today. Many were frightened by the disruptions at my meeting last night, but whether we are many or few, stitch by little stitch, we are helping to free humans from bondage. The sale of your children's neck scarves and quilts and aprons will bring good money at your anti-slavery fair. Oh, well, I attended my first abolitionist lecture when I was 21 years old. It was held in Worcester, Massachusetts, and William Lloyd Garrison spoke. We must raise up the standard of emancipation till every chain be broken and every bondsman set free. Let all the enemies of the persecuted blacks tremble. Well, I myself trembled. But I could think of no way to help the cause until a few years later. I took a teaching post in Lynn, Massachusetts. I joined the Female Anti-Slavery Society there. I was voted in as corresponding secretary. Oh, I had not anticipated how strongly people would oppose our abolitionist message, particularly when delivered by a woman. Oh, my first speech. Well,
I gave my first speech in 1838. It was in front of a promiscuous audience. That's men and women together in the same room. It was in Pennsylvania Hall in Philadelphia. Oh, the reformers had built that brand new building so we wouldn't have to go begging for a place to meet. At the end of that inaugural weekend, white women and black women felt strong in each other's company. Why, when we left the hall, we had to link arm and arm to force our way through a mob of 3,000 angry men and boys. Oh, you might ask if the firefighters came. In fact, the fire marshal and the sheriff were already there. I don't see a fire, do you? Oh, I don't see a fire if you don't see a fire. And as they turned their backs, Pennsylvania Hall burned to the ground. Well, there was one good thing that came out of that weekend. After hearing me speak, one of the movement's greatest speakers, Mr. Theodore Weld, asked me to become a lecturer for the American Anti-Slavery Society. Well, I said I didn't think I was capable, but he said to me, "Abby, if you don't, God will smite you." Well, I didn't want him to smite me. So here I am. Oh, yes. Yes, I was afraid. You see, I had not the name to call upon. I had not the gift of public speaking, nor money in my purse. And even my family thought me under a delusion to think that a young woman could travel around the country alone and give speeches as a lecturer. But God kept calling me to do this work. So I quit teaching. And with his help and a little help from my friends, I learned how to do what was asked of me. Oh, ladies, I do understand your fears. It is not easy to be a woman and break free of our chains, but I rise because I am not a slave. Sisters, there's no shame in being afraid. There's only shame in letting that fear overpower your duty to humanity. Why, the bravest people are those people who are afraid, but still have the courage to do the right thing. And you, sisters, you're brave for coming here today. As we left the sewing circle, storm clouds were gathering. Stephen, a terrible storm blew into the region about noon. Before we could get safely back to Sarah and William's home, our buggy got stuck in the middle of a huge puddle. Well, as we all got out to walk, down I went splat. Oh, please tell Allah that I finally received that cold water dunking I had so longed for. Oh, how I wish she could have been with me to join in that messy fun. But the storm caused more of a mess than mud on my petticoats. William reported that there's a half-foot of mud in the empty lot next to the blacksmith shop, so I cannot lecture there. Well, I just about threw my hands up in despair, but William counseled me. Now, Abby, God always finds a way. I know you may use our barn. I'll go out and find the boys and we'll clean it up. Well, Sarah looked distraught. She pulled me aside. A fugitive slave named Jacob had been hiding out in town in the blacksmith shop. The slave hunters had found out he was there, so unbeknownst to William, she let the blacksmith bring Jacob to her barn just this morning. Oh, Abby. Oh, Abby, what have I done? What have I done, Abby? William has no idea that there's a fugitive slave hiding out in the barn, Abby. Oh, what have I done? Oh, he ain't gonna break any laws. Even ungodly ones like the fugitive slave law and the Indiana black laws. Oh, Abby, Oh, Abby, what have I done? I have disobeyed my husband. What kind of a wife am I? Well, just then William stormed in. Those scoundrels! Pardon my vulgarities, ladies. Our 3 neighbors have just been found guilty of stealing slaves from their proper owners. Oh, that dang fugitive slave law! Abby, you are right, Abby. We must disobey these evil laws in every way we can. Well, Sarah thought she would test William's newfound resolve. She told him about Jacob hiding out in the barn. The look on his face was unforgettable. But before the day was out, William and the boys had built Jacob a small hideout in the barn loft. Now, who will ever suspect that while I am giving an anti-slavery speech below, there'll be a fugitive slave hiding above? And who knows, tonight, others, like William, may join our cause. Welcome! Welcome, dear friends, on this muddy night. When Indiana Territory was first opened for settlement 3 generations ago, everyone was welcome, and slavery was forbidden. But now, the so-called black laws in Indiana's new state constitution forbid any Negro or mulatto from settling in this state. Why, even the early free blacks are now being punished. Their contracts are no longer honored. They can no longer be employed, and they cannot vote. I ask you, fine folks, is this not prejudice against humanity? Why, how can anyone allow one race to control another? Well, I'm sure by now you all have heard that your 3 neighbors have been found guilty. Well, I pray that that verdict will have erased any doubts that remain in your heads and your hearts, for it is time. It is time, brothers and sisters, that northeastern Indiana be heard. You can sign this petition. You can sign this petition and ask your legislators to repeal these atrocious laws. Ladies, wait, ladies. Oh, it is true that like the slave, you cannot control your own employment. You cannot serve on juries, and you cannot vote. But you can sign this petition. The First Amendment of the Constitution gives you that right. I urge you all, claim this small voice in our democracy and sign this petition. Sign this petition and remove the ugly blot of slavery on your land and preserve liberty and justice for all. Brothers and sisters, there are men at the back of the barn carrying rifles. Turn and see for yourself the face of the slave hunter. You are not welcome here. You shoot me if you will, but you will not stop my voice. For the eyes of God, all human beings are created equal. Well, at first, nobody moved. And then William was by my side, and then someone else, and a young girl. One of the slave hunters raised his rifle. But Sarah started us chanting, "No slave hunters welcome! No slave hunters welcome!" And the minister and the school teacher joined us in our chant, "No slave hunters welcome!" The slave hunter lowered his gun. They all walked out of the barn, and I continued to lecture to a barn full of newly converted abolitionists. Stephen, oh, tonight, I saw people change right before my very eyes.
They peacefully broke the law to stop the slave hunters. Oh, when honest-hearted people are forced to choose between good and evil, they will choose the true course. Oh, this has made all my tears and loneliness worthwhile. I shall be home within the fortnight, just in time for Allah's birthday. Sarah has agreed to become secretary for their new local anti-slavery society. And William, he promises to sell newspapers, the Anti-Slavery Bugle. Oh, my little seedlings are blossoming into a garden full of anti-slavery grace. But the prejudice still remains in the hearts of so many. Nothing can be considered done while anything remains undone. Oh, the people of this place, oh, they will carry on when I am gone. You see, everyone must do something to aid the cause of humanity and justice. Oh, you don't have to go around giving speeches, but you do have to give a little something, a little time, a little money, a little honest effort. For you see, if things are going to change, it is absolutely up to you people here. I am forever affectionately yours for humanity, Abby.